What if Earth was 100% water and 0% land? Have you ever paused to imagine a version of Earth where there is not a single grain of sand, not a single island or mountain peak, just endless, uninterrupted ocean? A true water world, what would life look like? Could humans survive? Would animals even exist? Let's dive into this mind-bending alternate Earth, one that's covered entirely by water with 0% land, and explore the astonishing science, challenges, and philosophical questions behind it. Part 1. The geological birth of a water world. To understand a 100% water Earth, we first need to look at how such a world might form. On our current Earth, tectonic plates rise and shift to form continents and mountains. But what if tectonics never pushed land above sea level? Or what if comets, filled with water ice, bombarded the young Earth, flooding it beyond recognition? In this alternate version, the crust may be smoother and flatter, perhaps denser, with no elevation high enough to break the ocean's surface. The entire surface of Earth is now covered in an ocean that could be dozens of kilometers deep in places, deeper than even our Mariana Trench. No continents, no coastlines, no sand, just a seemingly infinite ocean under clouds. Part 2. The climate and weather of a planet-wide ocean without land to influence air pressure and temperature. Weather becomes radically different. Massive storms could dominate the atmosphere, perhaps megacyclones spanning hundreds of kilometers. With no mountains or land masses to break their rotation, storms spin and travel freely around the globe. Precipitation patterns are relentless. Some zones experience constant rainfall, while others remain oddly dry due to thermal ocean currents. Temperature distribution is more uniform, moderated by the ocean's high heat capacity. But without forests or deserts to regulate CO2 or water vapor levels, atmospheric chemistry would also shift. Cloud cover might increase, changing the albedo and reflecting more sunlight, perhaps even triggering an ice age. Part 3. How would humans survive? Now, suppose humans evolved or colonized this world. Where would we live? No land means we must adapt. Floating cities, perhaps inspired by modern oil rigs or futuristic sea domes, become humanity's home. These cities might anchor to underwater mountains or simply drift with the currents. Homes would be built from light, buoyant materials like carbon composites and polymers. Agriculture would be marine-based, kelp farms, seaweed harvesting, aquaculture for protein. Drinking water would rely on advanced desalination and rainwater collection. Energy might come from tidal turbines, wave power, floating solar panels, or even deep-sea thermal vents. Transportation, forget roads, we'd use autonomous boats, drones, submarines, and even underwater maglev tubes. But life would be fragile. A single collapse of infrastructure could strand thousands. Storms would be deadly, resources would be limited. Community and cooperation would be more important than ever. Part 4. The biosphere of an oceanic Earth. A planet of water would host a very different ecosystem. Land animals, mammals, reptiles, birds, and insects would never have evolved. Instead, marine life dominates. In the absence of human interference, the oceans could teem with enormous biodiversity, vast jellyfish blooms, kraken-like cephalopods, bioluminescent predators in the deep. Coral reefs, instead of forests, become the lungs and biodiversity hotspots of the planet. Whales, dolphins, and other marine mammals take the role of apex life forms. If intelligent life were to evolve independently here, it might look very different. Perhaps aquatic beings using sonar and echolocation instead of spoken language. Part 5. Culture, identity, and philosophy. Culture would evolve around the ocean, not in opposition to it. There would be no concept of nations, borders, or land ownership. Identity might revolve around city ships, sea families, or ocean regions. Religion might worship the sea as creator and destroyer. Festivals could celebrate migration patterns of whales or bioluminescent algae blooms. Languages might evolve to reflect aquatic metaphors. Instead of being grounded, People might say they're anchored. Instead of moving forward, they drift. Dreams may center around depths, currents, and waves. There would be no mountains to climb, but emotional challenges might be described as traversing the Mariana. Art and architecture would be fluid, curves, flowing forms, shimmering surfaces inspired by fish scales and wave patterns. Part 6, Dangers, Limits, and Future. A water world is not paradise. Without trees, oxygen levels might be lower, dependent on oceanic plankton. A plankton collapse could trigger mass extinction. Any widespread pollution, oil spills, plastic debris would be catastrophic. There would be nowhere for waste to go. Overpopulation could lead to floating slums. Resource conflicts may break out between drifting cities. Yet, perhaps without land to divide us, humanity might become more united. Maybe we learn to live lighter in balance with our blue planet. In the end, this oceanic Earth reminds us of something profound. We already live on a water world. 71% of Earth's surface is ocean, but we treat it like an afterthought. Maybe imagining a world of nothing but ocean can help us appreciate, protect, and understand the one we have before it's too late. But wait, if Earth had no land at all, what about our past? The history of humanity is written on land, from pyramids to cities, roads to ruins. With no continents, all that history would vanish, or maybe it would never exist. Civilization as we know it might not have begun. Would humans even evolve if primates never left the trees and walked the African savannas? Maybe something else would become intelligent first. Could dolphins rise as the dominant species? They're social, smart, and already adapted to ocean life. Or humans might evolve as a fully aquatic species, webbed hands, smooth skin, advanced lung capacity, even echolocation. Imagine people singing like whales to navigate and communicate. But that raises the question, where would we build things? Cities would float like giant lily pads. Maybe entire nations would be constructed on colossal, interconnected platforms like futuristic oil rigs or floating islands powered by wave energy, and instead of cars and planes, transportation would look like submarine pods, jet stream underwater highways, or hitching a ride on giant bioengineered sea creatures. Now let's talk climate. Without land to absorb and reflect sunlight, temperatures would become more stable. But extreme storms might become the norm. Hurricanes could be colossal and constant. We'd need mobile shelters or weather shields just to survive. What about culture? Languages might be more musical, based on rhythm and pitch, easier to hear underwater. Traditions could revolve around coral gardens, migration patterns, or even glowing bioluminescent ceremonies deep in the dark ocean. Would there be religion? Perhaps people would worship the ocean itself as mother, protector, and destroyer. Imagine legends about deep-sea gods or ancient creatures guarding the ocean floor. And conflict, sadly, still possible. Disputes over floating territory, clean air domes, or precious minerals from the seabed might spark underwater wars. But maybe by living in such a fragile world, humanity would finally learn cooperation, because when your entire world floats, unity might be the only thing keeping you from sinking. Let's go even deeper, literally. If the Earth were covered entirely by water, we wouldn't just live on the ocean, we'd begin to explore beneath it. And that's where things get truly mysterious. The deep ocean is the most unexplored place on Earth today. In this all-water world, humans might develop deep-sea civilizations, with homes made of pressure-resistant glass domes, lit by glowing algae and geothermal power from underwater volcanoes. Imagine looking out your window and seeing glowing fish drifting by, or the silhouette of a massive squid in the distance. But it's not just about survival, it's about how we change. Our bodies might adapt to pressure, darkness, and cold, eyes growing larger to catch more light. Skin's changing tone to reflect the glowing blues of the deep. We may even lose our voices, evolving to communicate through sonar, movement, or light patterns, just like some marine species do. Would we still be human? And what about technology? Without land, metals and minerals would have to come from the seafloor. Mining operations might look like robotic jellyfish drifting down to extract resources from thermal vents and submerged mountain chains. AI and robotics would become our hands in the crushing deep, building, repairing, and maybe even exploring the places no human could go. Now think bigger. What about space? If Earth had always been water only, our desire to reach the stars might look very different. Rockets don't launch well from water, but we might build them underwater, in submerged vacuum tubes, or from massive ocean-based towers that pierce the clouds. Or maybe, instead of looking up, we'd look down into the vast unexplored trenches, seeing the deep sea as our final frontier. An alien world right here at home. But here's the twist. A world of only water might teach us more about balance. With nowhere to pollute but the sea itself. Every choice, every action would come back to us. Destroy a coral reef? You lose part of your food, dump toxic waste? You poison your neighbors without land to hide behind. We might finally learn everything is connected, and maybe that's the biggest lesson of all. Whether we walk on land or swim in waves, we're still just travelers, trying to survive on one tiny blue ocean ball drifting through space. So, what kind of world would it really be? If Earth had no land, at first glance, it feels like a loss. No forests, no mountains, no cities, no monuments carved in stone. Everything we know rewritten, reshaped, and reimagined. But in that endless ocean, we might discover new kinds of beauty. Floating forests made of kelp and coral, towering biodomes that rise and fall with the tide. Cultures that evolve with the currents, fluid, adaptable, always moving. There would be no borders, no nations drawn on maps, only communities drifting in harmony or conflict across a shared ocean. Perhaps we'd become less territorial, or perhaps more, because even in an ocean world, space is survival. We'd find new ways to connect. Underwater festivals glowing with bioluminescence, languages shaped by rhythm and motion, maybe even music played through the water itself, and stories passed down not on paper, but through sound or light or dance. But most importantly, we learn something about ourselves. Humans are not defined by where they stand, but by how they adapt, how they create, and how they care for each other and the world around them. Because whether it's land or sea, this planet is still our only home. And in a world of water, we would finally understand that every ripple we make spreads further than we can see. So maybe the question isn't, what if Earth was only water, but rather, what kind of world would we build when everything else is washed away?